The Athanasian Creed, also known as Pseudo-Athanasian Creed, Quicunque Vult, is a Christian statement of belief focused on Trinitarian doctrine and Christology. The Latin name of the creed, Quicunque Vult, is taken from the opening words, "Whosoever wishes." The creed has been used by Christian churches since the 6th century. It is the first creed in which the equality of the three persons of the Trinity is explicitly stated. It differs from the Nicene, Constantinopolitan and Apostles' creeds in the inclusion of anathemas, or condemnations of those who disagree with the creed. Widely accepted among Western Christians, including the Roman Catholic Church and some Anglican churches, Lutheran churches, and ancient liturgical churches generally, the Athanasian Creed has been used in public worship less and less frequently, but part of it can be found as an authorized affirmation of faith in the recent common worship liturgy of the Church of England. It was designed to distinguish Nicene Christianity from the heresy of Arianism. Liturgically, this creed was recited at the Sunday office of Prime in the Western Church. It is not in common use in the Eastern Church. The creed has never gained acceptance in liturgy among Eastern Christians since it was considered as one of many unorthodox fabrications that contained the filioque clause. Today, the Athanasian Creed is rarely used even in the Western Church. When used, one common practice is to use it once a year on Trinity Sunday. Origin. A medieval account credited Athanasius of Alexandria, the famous defender of Nicene theology, as the author of the creed. According to this account, Athanasius composed it during his exile in Rome and presented it to Pope Julius I as a witness to his orthodoxy. This traditional attribution of the creed to Athanasius was first called into question in 1642 by Dutch Protestant theologian G.J. Vos, and it has since been widely accepted by modern scholars that the creed was not authored by Athanasius, that it was not originally called a creed at all, nor was Athanasius's name originally attached to it. Athanasius's name seems to have become attached to the creed as a sign of its strong declaration of Trinitarian faith. The reasoning for rejecting Athanasius as the author usually relies on a combination of the following. A creed originally was most likely written in Latin, while Athanasius composed in Greek. Neither Athanasius nor his contemporaries ever mention the creed. It is not mentioned in any records of the ecumenical councils. It appears to address theological concerns that developed after Athanasius died. It was most widely circulated among Western Christians. The use of the creed in a sermon by Caesarius of Arles, as well as a theological resemblance to works by Vincent of Lerins, point to southern Gaul as its origin. The most likely time frame is in the late 5th or early 6th century AD, at least 100 years after Athanasius. The theology of the creed is firmly rooted in the Augustinian tradition, using exact terminology of Augustine's on the Trinity. In the late 19th century, there was a great deal of speculation about who might have authored the creed, with suggestions including Ambrose of Milan, Venantius Fortunatus, and Hilary of Poitiers, among others. The 1940 discovery of a lost work by Vincent of Lerins, which bears a striking similarity to much of the language of the Athanasian Creed, have led many to conclude that the creed originated either with Vincent or with his students. For example, in the authoritative modern monograph about the creed, J.N.D. Kelly asserts that Vincent of Lerins was not its author, but that it may have come from the same milieu, namely the area of Lerins in southern Gaul. The oldest surviving manuscripts of the Athanasian Creed date from the late 8th century. Content. The Athanasian Creed is usually divided into two sections, lines 1 to 28 addressing the doctrine of the Trinity, and lines 29 to 44 addressing the doctrine of Christology, enumerating the three persons of the Trinity. The first section of the Creed ascribes the divine attributes to each individually. Thus, each person of the Trinity is described as uncreated, limitless, eternal, and omnipotent, while ascribing the divine attributes and divinity to each person of the Trinity, thus avoiding subordinationism. The first half of the Athanasian Creed also stresses the unity of the three persons in the one Godhead, thus avoiding a theology of tritheism. Furthermore, although one God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are distinct from each other, for the Father is neither made nor begotten, the Son is not made but is begotten from the Father, the Holy Spirit is neither made nor begotten but proceeds from the Father and the Son. The text of the Athanasian Creed is as follows. The Christology of the second section is more detailed than that of the Nicene Creed, and reflects the teaching of the First Council of Ephesus and the definition of the Council of Chalcedon. The Athanasian Creed uses the term substantia not only with respect to the relation of the Son to the Father according to his divine nature, but also says the Son is substantia of his mother Mary according to his human nature. The Creed's wording thus excludes not only Sabellianism and Arianism, but the Christological heresies of Nestorianism and Eutychianism. A need for a clear confession against Arianism arose in Western Europe when the Ostrogoths and Visigoths, who had Arian beliefs, invaded at the beginning of the 5th century. The final section of this creed also moved beyond the Nicene creeds in making negative statements about the people's fate. They that have done good shall go into life everlasting, and they that have done evil into everlasting fire. Quote. This caused considerable debate in England in the mid-19th century, centered on the teaching of Frederick Denison Morris. Uses. Composed of 44 rhythmic lines, the Athanasian Creed appears to have been intended as a liturgical document, that is, the original purpose of the Creed was to be spoken or sung as a part of worship. The Creed itself uses the language of public worship, speaking of the worship of God rather than the language of belief. In the Catholic Church in medieval times, this creed was recited following the Sunday sermon or at the Sunday office of prime. The creed was often set to music and used in the place of a psalm. Early Protestants inherited the late medieval devotion to the Athanasian Creed, and it was considered to be authoritative in many Protestant churches. The statements of Protestant belief of various reformers commend the Athanasian Creed to the followers, including the Augsburg Confession, the Formula of Concord, the Second Helvetic Confession, the Belgic Confession, the Bohemian Confession, and the 39 Articles. A metric version titled Quicunque Vult, with a musical setting, was published in the Whole Book of Psalm printed by John Day in 1562. Among modern Lutheran and Reformed churches, adherence to the Athanasian Creed is prescribed by the earlier confessional documents, but the Creed does not receive much attention outside of occasional use, especially on Trinity Sunday. In Reformed circles, it is included in the Christian Reformed Churches of Australia's Book of Forms. However, it is rarely recited in public worship. In the successive Books of Common Prayer of the Reformed Church of England, from 1549 to 1662, its recitation was provided for on 19 occasions each year, a practice which continued until the 19th century, when vigorous controversy regarding its statement about eternal damnation saw its use gradually decline. It remains one of the three creeds approved in the 39 Articles, and is printed in several current Anglican prayer books. As with Roman Catholic practice, its use is now generally only on Trinity Sunday or its octave. The Episcopal Church based in the United States has never provided for its use in worship. but added it to its Book of Common Prayer for the first time in 1979, where it is included in small print in a reference section entitled Historical Documents of the Church. In Roman Catholic churches, it was traditionally said at prime on Sundays after Epiphany and Pentecost, except when a double feast day within an octave occurred, and on Trinity Sunday. In the 1960 reforms, it was reduced to once a year on Trinity Sunday. It has been effectively dropped from the Catholic liturgy since the Second Vatican Council. It is however maintained in the forma extraordinaria per the Decree Summorum Pontificum, and also in the rite of exorcism, both in the forma ordinaria and the forma extraordinaria of the Roman Rite. In Lutheranism, the Athanasian Creed is, along with the Apostles' and Nicene Creeds, one of the three ecumenical creeds placed at the beginning of the 1580 Book of Concord, the historic collection of authoritative doctrinal statements of the Lutheran Church. It is still used in the liturgy on Trinity Sunday. A common visualization of the first half of the Creed is the shield of the Trinity.